Hey guys, it's Izzy here. You may remember me from our first episode, but once again, I'm 350 Madison's summer podcast intern, and today we're going to talk about something pretty critical here in Madison, recycling. According to the EPA, U.S. landfills released an estimated 114.5 million metric tons of methane into the atmosphere in 2019. That made up around 17% of our total methane emissions across all sectors that year. I got a chance to chat with Madison's recycling coordinator and public information officer, Bryan Johnson, in early June this summer, and he had a lot to say. Hopefully this talk will help some Madison residents gain a greater understanding of how our recycling system works and what we can all be doing at home to be just a little bit better. Here's Bryan explaining his job.
My name's Bryan Johnson. I'm the recycling coordinator and public information officer for the streets division. And there really is no regular day-to-day, to be honest. Like every day is sort of presents new challenges, whether it's like answering questions from the public, trying to make sure the website's functioning the best way that we can, from helping to write contracts and resolutions to like connecting to our contracted providers about questions that the residents bring up or businesses bring up, but is this thing recyclable? And packaging is always changing, so I go to our contractor MRF to figure out what it is that happens. And then when it snows, that's a whole other element of this job, because we're the streets division, we're the ones that plow the road, so a lot of it's that kind of contact. I'm the one that's on TV every winter that says you gotta drive slow in the snow. In case you didn't realize it, it's snowing, you gotta drive slow out there. Like I'm the one that gets to do that all winter long. It's great. So it's varied. Like every day is different. Right now we're kind of changing our large item collection and system in the city of Madison too. So a lot of it's been trying to solve how that's working and not working, like internally, and that. So it's been every day is a new set of challenges.
How long have you been the recycling coordinator for the city, and how did you fall into this position?
Gotcha. Fall into it. Good way of putting it. I been in this position for a little bit more than 5 years, and how I wound up here is a bit it's not a straight line. Like my background, I have a master's degree in creative writing and an elementary education degree. So if everything went according to plan, I'd be a fifth grade teacher someplace. And it did not. So instead, I am now the recycling coordinator.
Wow.
Which is, I mean, it doesn't, on its face, it sounds sort of silly. Like, how would this guy be this role? But you think a big part of this job is like teaching people through writing in some way, which is really what this, the skill set that I have from the degrees that I have. So like a lot of the more like nuts and bolts about how recycling works and what doesn't, that's things that I've like learned here. But being here at the streets division, kind of learned about how our systems work, how all the other stuff worked and why it's worked before, what the rationale is, and then just become more of an expert in the field, such as it is. I still feel funny. Like imposter syndrome is strong with me. So like I feel I wish expertise felt different, I guess I could say. And I could try to, but that kind of stuff is going to conferences, leaning on the people that have been in the field for longer and like the trusted experts, and learning, keeping your ears open and asking questions and staying like attuned to what's going on. So I was able to learn a lot of the other stuff that I didn't have coming into this job.
Okay, and then another thing I was interested in, would you mind explaining your role on the Madison Solid Waste Advisory Committee, or just maybe a little overview of what the committee does?
Well, that committee is actually defunct now. Like the Solid Waste Advisory Committee was ended by resolution last year, but it's been a while. I can't remember what year it was ended. It was part of the task force, the government task force that was headed up, where it was trying to streamline the number of boards, committees, and commission, because Madison has many, I can't remember how many, like 100 plus of these kind of committees and boards and stuff like that. So there was an effort pre-pandemic to start whittling some of those things down, because it was just killing the alder's time to go to all these different boards and that. And the Solid Waste Advisory Committee was absorbed into the Sustainable Madison Committee for some things. Yeah. And the Board of Public Works can handle some of the other things. Sort of depends on what the issue is that that wants to be talked about, I guess, because we don't have because at the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, what we did, a lot of it was sharing what we did street division wise, whether it be numbers related with our trash collection or ideas on how to solve problems, or when it came up with our solid waste plan, working with that committee to come up with what that plan would look like. And I know one big win we had with the SWAC, as we affectionately called it when it was going, was our battery recycling program was going to have to end because the place that was picking them up from us at the time didn't want them without us sorting them first. We had to separate them by chemistry type and tape them up. And we didn't think we'd be able to support that with our staff. So we didn't know what to do. And so we brought it up to SWAC. So when we took that up with SWAC, but how do we rescue the battery program? And they recommended that we use a supported worker, which was like a pretty elegant solution. So we were able to work with an adult with developmental disabilities to come in a couple times a week here at our Badger Road office to sort and tape those batteries for us. So we've been able to, one, provide meaningful employment for someone who may not otherwise have it, and to also provide the service to residents that really, because batteries are such a huge part of our lives, and like lithium batteries in particular are dangerous. Like they're a worldwide problem because of like the fires they cause at recycling centers, because you puncture certain lithium batteries, they'll spark, and then if you think you put it in a recycling truck, that just catches the truck on fire. We actually had a fire this past January.
Wow.
With driver safe, the truck was saved. We noticed the smoke kind of billowing out of the top of the truck. So she dumped it on the street, drove away like you're supposed to do. And the load was on fire because probably it was one of two things, like it was either like a propane tank, one of those 1 pound camp stove things, or a lithium battery. Lithium batteries are, because people, like, it's in your cell phones, it's in so much stuff. People don't know what to do, or they just want to recycle, so they kind of try to do the right thing. So they throw it in the bin and hope it can get recycled, and it caused a fire.
There's a real cost to people. I mean, nothing against anyone, but I think not sorting your recycling properly can actually cause huge harm.
Yeah, it really can't. Like it's been a few years now, but out of Pelletary Waste Systems, that's the private company that actually sorts the recyclables that the city of Madison collects.
Right.
They had a emergency situation at their facility where they had a chemical release that happened. Wow. So because somebody threw something in that didn't belong, they had to evacuate the people. One person went to the hospital behind this. They were fine ultimately, but it was something got up in the air that caused the thing. And the hazmat people had to show, they weren't even certain what it was, but something happened that caused a thing out there because somebody either didn't know, didn't care, or was trying to do the right thing, but didn't do it right. And that's the same thing with those battery fires are real common at recycling centers. Sorry, I'm trying to be cognizant of the time too. I'm a chatty person, so you gotta cut me off.
Have you ever heard of wish cycling?
Oh yeah. That's like the number one. The wish cycling is the thing where people mean well, and they put something in there. And I understand, like, the term almost kind of there's something about the term I don't particularly like, right? Because yes, it's true. It's because people are recycling things that don't belong. So they put something in the bin where they really wish it could be recycled, so they throw it in the bin anyway.
Right.
But there's so much pressure put on consumers to know what to do with the stuff, and our materials are always changing, that it's really, if like I'm in the industry, there's still things that I see. I'm like, what you do? What with this now? Yeah, it's hard to stay up to date on this stuff and expecting consumers to know what the rules are. Right. And rules are different basically most places where you live, at least state by state, things are different. There is no national umbrella rules for how all this stuff goes, or sort of national standards for this. So it's hard to know, especially like a place like Madison, where you have people that move in from other states and other places. Our rules are different than what they are in Tennessee, than what they are in Oregon, which is what they are in Florida. It makes it super hard for consumers to know. So like wish cycling is a problem in the recycling industry, but at the same time, it's kind of hard to blame consumers for wanting to do the right thing. Because let me give you an example.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Is this a video podcast or just
it'll be just sound, but you're welcome.
Sound, okay.
Feel free to do whatever.
Gotcha. So what I'm holding up then is this thing from one of these meal prep boxes.
Yeah.
It's got this giant number 1 on there with this. It even says, place me in your curbside recycling, but it's insulation, right? It's probably made from number one plastic, just like what it says on the label.
Mhm.
But you can't put this in your cart no matter what that says, because the way the sorting system works, this would just get wrapped around all these rollers that
Mhm.
work in this that help get the cardboard move it along on the conveyor belts and that.
Right.
And so you can't just put this in the bin, you know. And so if you order your, you know, whatever those meal prep boxes brands are, you open the thing, you see this in there, and you're like, aha, of course I could put this in my cart. I feel good about this. I'm doing what the packaging says.
Yeah.
How are you going to know unless you know the way the system works on the back end? I mean,
Right.
that's one of the nice things of Pelletary, the company that we work with, does have a really good video that shows soup to nuts what happens to your recycling after it winds up at their facility.
Mhm.
But still, you have to watch that video, put the pieces together and be like, aha, that's why this doesn't work in this system. And that's not to say that there's not some other place in Nevada or wherever
Sure.
that thing might work fine for, but
Yeah.
it's not universal. And and it makes it so hard for consumers. So I get why they wish, you know, but because you just have to look at your local rules are and follow what they tell you to do, because that's going to be catered to what's possible where you live.
Right.
But even that's it's hard. It's very difficult. So,
Yeah. No, I completely understand. And I'm a student at UW, and I live not on the campus, but near campus. And I think it is funny when you're living in a communal living situation with other students, and I'm asking my roommates why they think that they can recycle a pizza box, because I would have never done that. But for some people, you just don't know. And I think it's interesting to come at those different levels of understanding into one recycling bin, I guess, too.
yeah, that's true too. Because pizza boxes too are something that some communities are okay with, that greasier feedstock, because the paper mills that accept the stuff are willing to be more forgiving for it.
Right.
And it all depends. Like it's this the chain, or the behind the scenes value of the recyclables determines like what we could put in the bins in the first place. And so that's this complicated interconnected world of a global commodities market. Like right now, like as we speak here on June 14th on 2021, to date this, because everything changes with the market of this stuff, is that, you know, plastics are pretty valuable at the moment, particularly number two plastics. Like by the ton, it's worth something like 10 times more than what it was this time last year. And part of that is probably because of the Texas oil refineries being shut down from that weird cold snap that they had. You know, so it gets a decade's worth cold snap in Texas somehow means plastic in Wisconsin is worth more.
Wow.
Months later. How to get, you know what I mean? Like and that's why, like, when it comes to the recycling stuff, like when I give neighborhood talks, and part of that master recycler program that we put together with Sustain Dane, and like we try to end with this kicker about, like, yes, the system's good. Yes, you should keep recycling, but really the ultimate good that you're going to do is avoiding waste generation in the first place the best you can, because that is universal. No matter where you live, if you're just not making lots of trash, making like the best consumer choices you can to not generate the garbage or even generate recyclables, that's going to be better, because like the whole system for recycling to work is this complex interconnected commodities machine that determines what can and can't be recycled based off market value that none of us really control. You know, but we can control if we buy crap we don't need. You know, we can control like where we shop and how we behave, and the best we can, and the avoiding like the online shopping temptations the best we can.
Hard. It is hard.
You know,
yeah.
it's hard, but especially, you know, we're Americans, right? We're consumers. Go consume things, right? Like that's it's hard to kind of relearn that, but that's really where the benefit would be, or the big best benefit you can do would be controlling that consumption part and being more conscious about that.
Right. Do you ever have, if you were to recommend to a resident of Madison, maybe just like where they can see what they can actually recycle in the city? And obviously you said it's changing every day. Is the website for like the city of Madison, is that a good resource? Or
yeah, well, definitely come to us. So if you live in the city, check the Streets Division website. We have that recyclopedia booklet we put out. It's dense. It's a lot of information in that booklet, but it tells you if you're a homeowner, you want to know more about brush pickup, yard waste pickup, a little bit of snow plowing, like student move we talk about in there too. Like it's all in that booklet, which is great. We have those paper booklets available. They're in public libraries. They're definitely there. I have them at a few grocery stores here and there around, places where I can put them in public spots that they don't mind having them. I'll put them in there. So if anybody has any ideas, I want to contact the streets division, like, have you thought about X spot? Maybe I haven't. Shoot me an email. We'll figure it out. I need that. We need this information out there. That's the, but so it's cityofmadison.com/recycling. There's one of the, I think the link, I forget what the wording is, but it's like what to put in your recycling cart. There's pictures there too. We keep that updated, so as things change, it'll be updated there. Most recycling, that's the one good thing about Wisconsin, besides all the obvious things, is that we have a really good state law about what you can and can't recycle. And it mandates that like paper, plastic, metal, number one and number two, plastic must be recycled by state law, or plastic containers. And so that's, well, most of what's in your cart is that stuff anyway, which is good. That's really, really good. And so there should be some similarities no matter where you live in Wisconsin. At least those basics should be what goes in that cart where you live. But still, you got to trust your local resources. And if you don't know who picks up your stuff, onto all those carts, there's going to be a phone number on there. Or if it's a dumpster, if you're in an apartment, call that number, get that information from them. If you don't, and if you live in this Madison area and Pelletieri is your collection place, that's going to be the same rules the city has, because it's all sorted through that same machinery. But if it's like waste management or Green for Life or GFL, those are those bright green dumpsters you've seen around places now, or Badgerland Disposal, or like there's some other company that might be a servicing there. Like if you're not certain what the rules are, check. By city ordinance, the landlord should be providing that information to you, but no harm in calling them to be certain that you have that information to do the right thing. And that's, I was going to get into this, but the unprompted, let's just get into it. Because one of the challenges of this job too, because I mentioned like getting that information out to the community wherever possible, is that it's so hard because we don't really have any great like communal spaces where all of our attention's in the same spot anymore. Like even like 30 years ago when recycling first kicked off, we still, the basic news channels, you can pay for an ad on there and you're going to hit a good slice of the eyeballs that you need to be able to touch. But now, like, I think everything's so cultivated to our own desires, the way we consume news and media, and it's so hard to be in all these individual bubbles that we can lock ourselves in. And that's one of the reasons why we did that master recycler program with Sustain Dane, was because I can't be everywhere. But if we train up enough people, we can then seed expertise in a lot of these other little channels where make them the trusted voice in these little information bubbles that they may never think to ask the city. It'd be great if they would, but I understand that it's we're this, can't talk to the city, we're some big government monolith, they'll just be mean or jerks. Like we're not,
You just went into my email and I was a complete stranger.
Yeah, no, exactly right. I pride myself on, like, at least if you contact the streets division, you get a hold of me. I will do my best to get back to you. Like on the weekends, trying to respond to emails on my phone. I mean, I should probably be playing with the sun, but like, what do you, right? And we're here to help, especially because we know how difficult some of this recycling stuff can seem, or the stuff in our lives is so complicated that it makes recycling difficult, because our stuff's always changing, but it makes it hard. So we try to, if you have questions, certainly ask the city. We'll try to help the best that we can. And then if you're not served by the city, contact your waste hauler. They should be able to at least give you that list of stuff they can take and what should or shouldn't be in there, and go from there.
Great. Yeah. And can you explain the master recycling program through Sustain Dane?
Yeah, it's something it's sort of been thinking about it for a while. And this year we finally just like asked Sustain Dane to help, and they're like, great idea, let's do it. And they helped me just actually get off the couch and basically do it, which was nice. But it's what they're with Sustain, it's really Sustain Dane's program, but I helped pull all the information together to make certain everything's right. And that where we take a group of people and train them up with what the recycling rules are in the city of Madison, and then give them more information about how to compost, some things about like not so much zero waste living, but like waste avoiding. And can't remember there's more on the second day. Day one is really just getting into why recycling works, the bits about the market and what the rules are here locally. And then it's a 2-day course, and day two is more the other information that's related, like the special waste, about where to go with medicine, where to go with batteries and electronics, and how there's so much stuff in our lives, and not all of it can just be crammed on these 2 bins you have in your garage. Like you have to manage where it all goes. And that's an idea. And so after those 2 90-minute classes, we ask the people that enrolled to complete an outreach project. So with the Master Recycler program, after we train them up for those 2 classes, then we expect them to do an outreach program. And that's how they get certified. So they submit what their project is to Sustain Dane, whether it's teaching a neighborhood group, a church group. I believe someone's trying to make like a website, like how to look up things, and like trying to find some ways to reach these other communities that like won't reach out to me, that because my job is varied, putting out various fires daily, that it's hard to do that sort of planning ahead to get into these certain neighborhoods that could use more information that I know that I'm just not reaching because they're not reaching out to me. Right. It's and like hopefully getting the master recyclers to kind of help spread this information in their communities, that where they're trusted voices, where they're act as the experts because they won't ask me. So whether it be the next door group that's willing to ask a question there but not email the city the same question, at least I can get someone that I can count on to give them the right information, as opposed to some other random person with a real strong opinion, which I rather and that's one of the things you get for being like a certified master recycler, is that like a digital frame to go around your social media pages. So if you are like, you could put that around your picture on your Facebook or whatever pages. That way, if you are answering these questions, at least that little frame can give people, oh, this is someone I can trust. Since I can't be in every little neighborhood group and things like that. But these other people can, which will be nice. And hopefully that'll help spread this information out from these trusted sources, and maybe even pull people in to look at the city sometimes if they have other questions that it's okay not to know. Hopefully, and that way we can kind of drive that contamination rate of our recycling bin down, which would be good. But right now, the exact number like escapes me. Like we just had a recent update with what our recycling contamination rate is. It was at 18% or almost 19%. That was just trash in your recycling cart, stuff that didn't belong in your cart. It was 18.9%, right? That number is lower now from this most recent sort, but I can't remember the number of it. They did a sort, and they didn't really start applying it till this past month, I believe. So I can't remember the number off the top of my head. It's still not like zero. It's not single digit. It's like 13% or something like that. Better, but here in Madison, we've been recycling since 1968. We are very likely the oldest recycling program in the country, right? We need to be better about this. That's not who we are. I mean, like that's it's not in our DNA is to be really good at this, to be on the forefront. We beat Earth Day by 2-3 years, Earth, and so
founded here.
Yeah, and so like we should be good at this, right? And so in 18.9%, way on the line. I think even at 13%, I think we can be better. And so hopefully that's one way these master recyclers can help. Not necessarily asking them to do my job for me. It's just I know I can't be everywhere. Reel that number down to get it into single digits. I think we'll never get to zero. I don't think we'll never be able to hit everybody, but like I think 5 to 7% contamination rate. I mean, for our community, for as educated as we are, for as much as we care, for as long as we've been doing this, I think that's achievable. I mean, that would be stellar for us. It would be like I haven't seen a good like national number for what the contamination rate is nationally. Mm-hmm. I saw like a blog from Waste Management once that mentioned like 25% contamination rate.
Brian's memory was correct. The national average for recycling contamination in the US is 25%. So Madison is well below average, but of course it'd be great to have much less or hit the 0% mark. And you mentioned too that part of the training for master recyclers is learning a little bit about compost. I know that the city's attempted like an organics recycling system, pickup system a couple times.
Yeah.
Where are they at? And I know it's obviously a hot button issue, but where are they at?
It remains a moving target. I will say that. Like for right now, like that's I can say where we are right now. You know, tomorrow is tomorrow's problem. That's tomorrow Brian's problem. Today is where we are today. We have with our food scrap program right now, we wound up with it's at our 3 streets division drop-off sites right now, where we take a really restricted amount of food, and that goes to there's certain things we just can't take in the bin the way the program is right now, and the food goes to an anaerobic biodigester that primarily deals with manure right outside of Madison in the town of, I guess technically it's town of Springfield, but it's Middleton, right? And we have it at the drop-off sites because that's the best way for us to control contamination, because that's what killed us time and time again at the curb. Now, part of that contamination failure was on the city. We did not do a good enough job keeping expectations, right? Like we began the program with an expectation that the place that would take it wouldn't try to make a compost that you can spread on farm fields and that. So we were pretty lax as to what could put in the cart. We've been telling people like early in the program, like a decade ago, we were like, oh, diapers are fine, no big deal, no big deal. They're just making a fill material out of it. And so even we were saying pet waste was fine a decade ago. Well, that place closed, and all the other available spots are using it for farm fields or trying to grow things. And we were just unable to sort of steer that train at that point. Like even like 6-7 years on, we were getting people surprised they couldn't put kitty litter in their food scrap bin anymore. Like, no, like we've been like, and that's sort of the limitations of the contact that we have too, even like a humbling experience for myself, where as much authority and attention you think you're commanding when you send an email or a press release, you're not going to get everybody, and I even sent once photos of the contamination of our food scraps to every physical address that I had that I knew was in the program, like pictures of it was my Arlo Guthrie, Alice's Restaurant moment, where I had pictures of garbage with circle and arrows in the back of each one to date myself a little bit. That's probably a reference way over your head. That's somebody listening to this podcast will appreciate my Alice's Restaurant reference.
Listeners will know, I'm sure.
We're like saying like, look, you can't put plastic shovels in your food scrap bin. We can't take cardboard boxes in here. We can't do these things, or your ice cream carton. Stop it, and it didn't stop it, and finding out like people sometimes don't even open the mail that they get from things like that, or not till weeks later. So you learn like limitations of the communication tools that are available to you here in the city. And it was because of that contamination problem, there was no way for us to stop it at the curb besides peeking in the bins before you dump it. And that takes a lot of time. It's our collection system for trash and recycling is one guy in one truck, basically, or one person in one truck. Shouldn't have said guy. They drive up, they have a little joystick, grabs the cart, dumps it in the top of the truck, sets it down, drives off to the next stop. So it's really efficient that way. You can do almost like 1,000 stops in one day with one driver. Then it's fantastic. Right. But if something's in that thing that doesn't belong, once it's up and into the truck, the problem's in the truck now. You can't stop it anyplace else. That's why our recycling system works, because it has this robust sorting system on the back end, trying to grab stuff out that doesn't belong. Mm-hmm. That doesn't exist for food scraps here locally. So once we tipped something into the truck that was a problem, then that just was a problem. That was done. And so we tried it. So we tried it with the automated truck, just failed. Then we transitioned to, okay, what if we peek in the bin? So we closed the program down as we were doing it, did a little curbside trial for a little bit just to see if we could make it work. If we peeked in every bin at every stop, and we kept it clean, but the volunteers we got was about 20% of a trash collection route, and it was still taking us a full day. So a fifth of a normal route was still taking us a full day's worth of work to peek in every bin, to like stop, one person hops out, peeks in the bin, looks okay, dumps it in the truck, peeks again, sets the bin down, roll to the next stop, and on and on and on like that. It kept it clean, but you can't replicate that citywide. We can't quintuple the size of our refuse collection force for that. It just won't work. So at the drop-off sites, it's limiting because our hours are what they are. You have to make the effort to come to us, but it's kept it clean, it kept it accessible to people, and we could take it to the this digester where we're working with now. And yeah, and that's until the next thing changes. That's what the plan is. I think building something kind of purpose built to handle food scraps and to handle the contamination that we will inevitably get from people wish cycling food, basically, or
Right.
the low information bins that winds up in people's homes, where like the teenager is the one that's scraping the plates, or their job is to take the trash out, say, and they're putting stuff in bins willy-nilly, and can't have that, or doing a poor job explaining this part. But basically, like, until there's that robust sorting thing with food, or some other facility that could manage it in a way that can deal with that contamination stuff, we're not going to get to that full citywide curbside pickup. We're a ways away from that happening. It's not impossible. It just takes the investment in the place to be able to handle that stuff.
Yeah.
And we can get there.
Yeah. Okay. And so the food scrap pickup program, was that the pilot program that launched in 2019?
Well, that was version 2.0, I guess you could say. Like the food scrap program began as the organics collection program 10 years ago.
Okay, yeah.
Then we learned, one of the things we learned is that organics is too vague of a term, because you can buy organic bed sheets, and then people that want to get rid of said bed sheets will put them in the cart because it says organics on the top because it's organic, right? And then we've learned other things about sort of resident behavior, where our bins for the organics program just said organics only on the lid, right? And so whenever those homeowners would move out and new people would move in, they would see this weird third bin that was a black bin that had a word they maybe didn't really know what it meant on the top of it. They would just treat it like a trash can. They wouldn't call us on the side of the number on the side of the bin or anything like that. They would just do whatever with it, which wasn't great, and so we tried calling it a food waste program for a little bit. And then we were seeing so many like butter wrappers and like potato chip bags and stuff that wasn't food, but it was like waste from food. So maybe that's what they were thinking.
Yeah.
Belong. Right. I couldn't make sense of it. That's why we just like really deliberately calling it a food scraps recycling program, because it makes it more concrete of what we can take. And also, like, if the people that want to recycle their kitty litter and that, like, it gets way simpler to understand why. No, it's like, no, it's not food. You're not going to eat your kitty litter. No, not food, and that's, as we're kind of, the process has been, I guess it's as much as the cliche building the plane as we fly it, like we have been, as we kind of learn, okay, this is how we act with this, is this way. Well, let's change this, let's behave this, it's been lessons learned over and over and over again. And we're at a point now where we think we have everything figured out. It's just that we need to if we needed to go citywide again, we know we need a place to take it. And that whatever that place is has to be able to wrestle with this contamination, everything from the obvious stuff like clothes that we'll see in there, because they'll be the 100% organic cotton shirts that people will see that and go, oh, it's just a plant, put it in the thing, no big deal. Right. No, but they'll mean well, but it'll be wrong. Or the simple mistakes, like forgetting to take the candle out of your jack-o'-lantern that has the metal ring on the side of it, or the not taking the stickers off your avocados that go bad, or the plastic wrap around the parsley. You got to be able to wrestle that stuff out too, because the compost on the back end, you don't want these plastic stickers and stuff floating around in there, especially unless trying to sell it, unless the people that are buying it know to expect it's there. Like Denver does that. the city of Denver's food scrap program, the company they work with markets the food scraps from the city collection with that kind of on the bag. So you go in buying this knowing that you might see a produce sticker in there, or it's sort of like imperfect. And if you don't like it, quit putting that stuff in your food scrap. And like that's what, at least that's the way I interpret it. Like I know that's how I would handle the phone calls. Like, oh man, you got a produce sticker in your compost. That's a bummer. You should really quit doing that. Then you should quit putting those stickers in that and be diligent next time and peel those things off. And but it's where it's still I always remain hopeful with this food scrap stuff too, because I think we're at a point where it's just we're missing investment, right? And the budgets are tough now because of the pandemic and everything. I totally get that, but it's still in the city's comprehensive plan to provide a citywide food scrap program by the 10 years. That's how long those comprehensive plans are supposed to last for. Right. The city passed there, I think 2018 is when it was officially passed. So by 2028, if we hold true to that plan and they makes the investments in accordance with that plan,
right,
then we should have something there. And it's just a matter of following through with the plan that we laid for ourselves 3 years ago. Everything changed, last year, but still, I remain hopeful, because if all we're missing is a place to take it, we can build that. We can do that. And we can collection. We know how to do that. That's what the streets division does. We pick up stuff all day long.
Right.
That's just people. And people in trucks. But that's easy enough. It's just the investment we need.
And I'm wondering too, and this might be too big of a question, but when I think about, obviously you're on the street level, you're working with city pickup, a very local issue. Do you ever feel, I guess also I'm interested too, because you're coming into this job, learning a lot about waste management, obviously on the day-to-day, but do you feel connected to like global environmental issues, even though you're working day-to-day on like a local scale of helping us to manage our waste more environmentally sound?
Oh yeah, like it's the waste is absolutely, like it's just at least with the recycling markets, that you have absolutely are connected globally to things, because the China changed their import rules in 2017 going into 2018 just for the plastics they would take into their country, and that changed local programs. And so that was first sort of real big like wake up call, like it really is all interconnected in some way like that. So you do see those interconnections in that way. It's like how this Texas refinery shut down probably caused the spike in plastics here, and like really like a lot of recycling or plastic prices in general are tied to like energy markets around the world, which is like, who knew? Like going into this, like now I do, and now the listeners of this podcast know. Right. So like that's the thing. Whenever you see gas prices going up, and you're like, oh man, that's a bummer. It's like, aha, but your plastic's worth more now because that's all made from oil. So hidden benefit of having to pay more at the gas pump, I guess. Really, we should just be using less plastic in the first place. But that's right. The other way you feel this like kind of global connected thing is whenever I mentioned that the national sword that China did when they changed their importing rules, that kicked off a bunch of national news stories about recycling being in crisis. And oh my goodness, someplace in Arizona's landfilling their cardboard. Everything's terrible. Well, probably true. Yes, Arizona might have been doing that, but Wisconsin was different because we have different laws. Our markets are different. A lot of the paper mills are in the Midwest, and so you wind up kind of being a little powerless against this global system too, especially for like those national news stories that would always never emphasize enough how regional and state by state a lot of recycling opportunities and laws are, where they would couch it in a way which was technically and probably journalistically correct, where it was like some places are choosing to landfill their recyclables. Well, the sum is doing a lot of hard work, and if you're just consuming the news and you don't know intimately aware of what your program is, you're just going to assume that this like NPR story about recycling includes your community, right? Because that's the news source you trust, and it makes it hard because that's that regionality of the recycling is sort of a harder thing to kind of get our head around, because like, why is a plastic bottle from Maine different than one from Idaho? It's not, but the opportunities to recycle is different in those places, and there's no, and it's makes it difficult. And but yeah, you do feel part of it. You kind of feel like you're part of the solution, and also like powerless against being part of not part of the problem. It's just more like no, I promise you the difference. You feel like you're kind of fighting against the tide sometimes too, a little bit, where I'd get emails where like, are you telling me you're not burning your plastics or burning your recyclables? I read this article on the BBC that said that recycling does that. I'm like, well, I promise you that we're not. I don't know how to make you believe me though, but I promise you that we're not. Because
on the record, that's not what happens. Yeah.
Like you can hold me to this. I know we're not doing this, and I'm glad but that's the one person that asked. Who are the other people that read this and are making assumptions about what we do without engaging with it? Right. Maybe that's another way that those master recyclers can help, because if somebody can pop offline like, well, I read one time my cousin said he did this thing 10 years ago with this one place. I'm like, oh my God. Maybe that I can have a voice in that conversation without actually being there. They can say, but you can ask this nice bald fella at the city. He'll totally give you the right answer. Here's what I learned in my master recycler course. We could, and here's what's really happening in the city. Here's this video. Here's these resources, and hopefully steer that away from like these assumptions that we make, because these national stories don't always get the nuance right, which is recycling is nuance, like at least the way the system is now, without that sort of national system in place or some sort of standards for this stuff. It all depends on where you live and what the opportunities are there.
Bryan even added a couple tidbits about what he'd think listeners would want to know.
Probably what you're going to get is a group of questions from listeners next. They'll be like, well, what about they'll be like, what about prescription bottles? You'll probably get asked that. Depends on the size. And if there's certain, like anything, a standard Post-it note is about the smallest you want anything in the recycling cart, give or take, because anything smaller than that gets mixed in with the glass, the way the glass gets sorted. Or what are the other common questions? What do you do with styrofoam? What do you
do with styrofoam?
Yeah, like avoid it when you can. Mm-hmm. And here in Madison, we're again one of the best, and you can bring it to one of the city drop-off sites. There's a styrofoam recycler here locally that we haul semi-truckloads of styrofoam to a couple times a month. But you can't just put it in your recycling cart, because with the way that sorting mechanism works, it shreds the styrofoam up. It would just have these little pellets of stuff all over the place. You don't want that. How clean does recycling really have to be? What we tell residents is like honest effort, because there's no it's never going to be pristine, right? But don't leave any obvious food chunks behind either. You got to work a little bit to get the peanut butter out of the glass jar, or they can just check the city website, or give their city email, like send me an email, or check with their local master recycler, because there's bound to be one in your circle of friends. They can certainly answer those questions for you too.
Good to know. Bryan, thank you so much for talking with me today. This has been a really great conversation. Honestly, I feel like I've learned a lot. It's been really fun.
That's happy to be here. I'm really, thanks for asking me to be part of this. I appreciate doing it. If any other questions come up, or if there's you want me back or round 2, let me know.
Thank you so much, Bryan.
Love it. Thank you, Izzy. I appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you later.
Indeed. Thank you.
This is an open letter from you and me together. Tomorrow's in our hands now. Find the words that matter, say them out loud. I make it up so